Debt is actually a good thing. I know we have different relationships with money. And one of the relationships that we've had with money as Africans from the time we were young is to be told money is bad.
So you're saying we've got good debts and bad debts.
Yes.
And what differentiates between a good debt and a bad debt is what you use it for.
Yes.
Welcome to Zamara Podcast, your gateway to financial literacy and well-being.
I'm your host, Crescencia Ododa. Today, we'll be looking at an all too familiar topic, that is debt management. And we're joined by our guest, Masiki Munge, a professional in the financial services sector with over 12 years of experience, spanning from the insurance sector and now in the retirement space. What I know about Masi is that she's very passionate about Rotary. One of the things I believe in Rotary is that you give back to the society. This is one of the times I'm going to ask you, Masi, give it back to us with your insight and your knowledge as we look at this topic of debt management. Debt. Nothing is very emotional as debt, and especially to Kenyans. Very recently, we are looking at how our debt records keep skyrocketing and everything. And all the Kenyans actually bearing this burden because they know it's translating to high taxes and all that. At the moment, when you look at the debt level, at the national level, we're almost close to 10 trillion. But I want to believe today, at an individual level, each and every one of us, where are we? Masi, very briefly, what is debt management?
Debt management is basically organizing your monies that you owe. Basically knowing that I owe X amount of money to X number of people. And once you know what you owe, you are able to own it, right? As you've alluded so rightfully, we've talked about the Kenyan government where the question has always been, where is our debt? Who do we owe money?
What level
to
is
what
it at?
tune? To what tune do we owe? We've seen just the other day, we are being told the SGR is having a debt that is being repaid. But apparently the Chinese people did not take our money to build so if you don't know how much money you owe, then you're really not managing that aspect of it. So debt is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but you need to know. Once you know, you have the first step in managing it.
So you're saying you need to know whom do you owe?
Yes.
That is in terms of the amount?
Yes.
I think you'll also be keen on what is the repayment rate?
What is the
interest rate?
Exactly. What's the interest rate? What is the duration? To whom do you owe? Because again, remember these things have ripple effects. We might say, I don't have a debt, but I have Fuliza. Fuliza is a debt, right?
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a debt. Yeah. You might say you don't have a debt, but maybe your local delivery, you've not paid them for a couple of days, right?
Yeah.
So the mama mboga, the milk, the bread person, you owe them money. Yeah. But what's the ripple effect of that debt? The ripple effect is more than just money. So you need to be able to know, is it a corporate entity, an institution I owe? Is it the mobile money apps that I owe? Is it my friends and family that I owe? Is it even the worst ones, like the Shylocks that you owe? You need to also be able to list these debts down.
When you speak of debts, you give me the feel that it could be a bad thing.
Debt is actually a good thing. I know we have different relationships with money. And one of the relationships that we've had with money as Africans from the time we were young is to be told money is bad. You can't have a lot of money. And when someone has a lot of money, you're told that person is not a good person, right? And then you grow up and you start working and you start realizing I need a bit more than I'm currently having from maybe the income I'm having, the business that I have, but I need to expand. How do you expand? You expand by taking a loan, right? So if you're doing a business and you'd want to get more stock, but your revenues would not allow you to get that large stock at once. So you'll probably go to the bank or your SACCO, get some money, use that money to expand your stock, right? That would be good because then that stock is supposed to pay for itself. So that means the debt is servicing itself. However, we also are in a situation where we have become a very consumer-driven economy. So I want to be in my big car, I want to be in my big house, I want to be in flashy clothing because I have to keep up with the Joneses. So with that, we've also now seen the emergence of ways of getting money that does not require you to actually do paperwork. I just go on my phone, seated comfortably at my desk or wherever, go into the app store, check which app is new in my country, download it. They've never met me. All I need to do is to register, and instantly I can get 1,000 shillings, 2,000 shillings. Who knows I have that money?
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knows other than yourself and the mobile app. So that means the accessibility of loans has become quite easy. But now, due to that, the ease of getting these loans, we find that we get the loans not for the good reasons, but for consumer reasons. Now, if you're getting a loan for consumer reason, now that would become a bad debt.
So you're saying we've got good debts and bad debts.
Yes.
And what differentiates between a good debt and a bad debt is what you use it for.
Yes.
Another thing you're saying is that it's become so easy for us to get debt. And sometimes we think it has no implications just because you need to get it through an app and you're done and all that. Not knowing that actually sometimes when you're downloading the app and all that, you're giving consent to so many things.
So many other things.
That they can still track you in one way or another. And we end up getting into this pitfall. You're suddenly in debt.
Yes.
How do you get out of it?
You know, you've said suddenly. it's like you've
Many times it is suddenly, Mercy.
It's never sudden. It really is never sudden, right?
Maybe times you're reading something on your phone and it pops on your screen that you are actually eligible for something. Then there it is, you find yourself just wanting to find out, what does it mean? What does it entail? And in your finding out, you've enrolled in a debt. And you're like, okay, not so bad to have this one extra 1,000 shilling that I had not anticipated to get. And you're looking at it, this is so little, I'll probably be in a position to pay it off so soon.
Yeah.
The one too many times this happens, there you are, strangled by debt.
And I like the way you say that you were scrolling on your phone and then suddenly you're enticed. So, curiosity killed the cat, right?
This is where you get killed.
Yeah, this is where you get killed. So getting into this trap is not easy. It's the same way we trap the mice, the cats in the house. It's one small thing. Eventually, it's a big thing. So it really isn't sudden. It's the gradual steps that we take, not having an idea of what we want money to do for us. Because see, if you don't budget, means you're only getting money for quick wins. The things you're doing with this 1,000 shillings were probably not in the budget. But because you have a 1,000 bob, suddenly
An extra one that
you had not even thought of. You had not anticipated, but it has fallen right on your laps, right? And you're told within this first month, you can use this 1,000. You just repay the 1,000. Interest is maybe 90 shillings, But over time, the 1,000 becomes 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 30,000. Yes. Suddenly 30,000, you can't pay in one sitting. Yes. So it is not sudden. It's the haba na haba hujaza kibaba, on the person who's giving you the loan. But for you, it's more small and small that is being taken away from you, because then as much as your debt is increasing, that means you have to pay a lot more from your pocket. So they will give you the 1,000, pay 90, give you 2,000, pay 200, 30,000, pay 5,000. This is 5,000 you now need to look for to pay over and above the 30,000.
And actually, the 1,000 doesn't really get to a point where you struggle with it. By the time someone is thinking of debt management, it is not a 1,000 bob situation.
Exactly.
It is oftentimes in thousands.
In the thousands. Yes. A lot more numbers are after the 1,000, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Remember, we started by saying that you need to know your debt. So when you need to know your debt, it's basically having a plan, a page on your book or your vision board if you have any, or even on your phone, because nowadays you're very tech savvy. You need to be very honest with yourself. And I feel like when we talk about money, most of us like to hide behind the big numbers and forget the small numbers. So anytime you talk to someone about what level of debt do you have, they'll talk about the SACCO, they'll talk about the bank, and they'll talk about maybe any other financial institution. But they will not talk about the chamas. They'll not talk about the money they owe from their friends and family. Yeah. They'll not talk about the Shylocks that they owe.
The mobile money
apps, those ones. They won't list them down. But if you're genuine...
And why is that? Is it because of lack of track record? Maybe you didn't fill any form, so you don't feel like you owe someone money?
There's the mental health impact of knowing that you owe so much. So it's easy to give a bigger ballpark and leave these small ones, because you also don't want to look like you're such a bad money manager.
Yeah.
If we are very true with ourselves, we have to be very vulnerable. Yeah. You don't even have to tell other people, but with that book that is yours, you're able to see. So how do you get out of this trap? you're able to first start saying, how much money on a monthly basis am I repaying on debts? Because how does it become a trap? It becomes a trap in such, for example, say, let's use someone who's earning a salary. You earn your salary and you know your overall debt may be, say, 20,000, right?
Yeah.
So that one will be deducted maybe through checkoff, which is a very easy way to do things. But as you're consuming, you find that you've consumed more than your net income, but you still need to do other things. So what will you do? You'll go and get a loan. So the next time when you're getting your salary, your loan is not, your net expense is not 20,000. It is 20,000 that is done on checkoff plus the loans that you took last time.
Yeah.
Right? Let's call
But
it
you now have to-
10,000.
yeah.
So when
You
you're
have to settle them.
Exactly. Now you have to first settle the 10,000. Remember, your consumer problems have not ended. Yeah. So you still have the whole debt from last time. You've paid another 10. So this time, if you have to take money, you're not taking 10. You're probably going to take 20. Yeah. So the next month, you're going to take 30. The next month, you're going to take 40.
Yes.
Yeah. Eventually, you've maxed out on your advances from the bank, you know, and now you're wondering, day one of salary, there is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, when you sit down with your money, you're able to now start seeing, is this necessary? Is it required? So first of all, list them. Second of all, start off with the ones that are detrimental to your life. The Shylocks, the mobile money, pay it off. Delete that app on your account. That way, you're only left with sustainable ones. And if you were to look at that listing of the debts, you would realize that the institutional ones for a long time had been very consistent. Well, outside of the fact that now that the interest rates of the government are increasing, consequently, the cost of money has also gone up through institutions, right? But if you were still to list them, you'll find that the Shylock rate is very high.
Yes.
Your mobile money rates are very high. Our friends and family don't give us rates. But you know what they do? It impacts your social gathering with them.
Yeah.
Because every time you meet with them, you're wondering, is this the day they ask me to
When
pay
are you
back?
paying?
Yes.
When are you paying now that you've not been picking the calls, probably?
Or that day you drive in a car. Perhaps you had even borrowed the car and they're wondering, but you have my 10,000 shillings and
Why
you're driving
aren't you-
this car.
Yes.
Why aren't you being able to pay me back? You know, so it's not
There's still a cost to it.
There's still a cost to it. It might not be documented as a particular rate, but there is the whole pressure of, is your social gathering still working the way it should be because you're having this
That's
debt
the
from
cost
your
to
friends.
it. I know most guys, I like the fact that you've brought in the psychological aspect to it. I want us to just get to that after this. There are normally many theories on how to pay debt. Of the many theories, I don't know which one you recommend, which one you probably say, this is what has been seen to have a good track record for people to get out of it.
Yeah. There's one called snowballing. Snowballing basically means you pay off the little ones. You know, because there's that feeling of
You
I
start
have
with the little
conquered.
as-
I have
yes.
conquered, right?
Yes.
So remember we had an example of you have your institutional loans at 20,000. Then you've had all these others that are adding up to the 10,000. So if you were to break the 10,000, maybe you owe a mobile app 2,000.
Oftentimes, oh yes,
or
the
something like
institutional
that.
ones are higher.
Yes, those ones are higher. And because they're on checkoff, it might be fine because at least your salary is still working towards it. And what you need to do is get out of all these others outside of the institutional one. So for example, let's say it's 10,000, but you have a breakdown of one is 5,000, 2,000, another 1,000. So you start off with this 1,000 one. There's a feel-good element that comes from ticking off a debt.
Yes.
So I have finished off this 1,000. But doesn't mean that now because this 1,000 is free that I now go and use it for other things. No, what it means with this snowball process is that now this 1,000 helps me repay the 2,000. So that now this 2,000 one is paid faster. Okay.
Yeah, if you
then
just-
now, once I am done with the 2,000 one, I now have 3,000 to repay. Use the 3,000 to pay the 5,000. The 5,000 gets prepaid quicker. Now I have 8,000. Use the 8,000 to pay the balance of the 10,000, right? Once now you have freed up all of this, it's possible to say that now this 10,000 that I have, I can easily distribute it into my institutional loans also. So that these institutional loans can also be paid quicker.
So you actually increase the repayment amount to reduce the repayment
duration,
period.
and even consequently reduce mostly the interest for institutional ones because interest is on reducing balance. So as you reduce your principal, eventually there's a possibility that you might also reduce the potential interest that you have paid over the period of time. Yeah. So that's one. Another one is that you've looked at all your debts and you look at your institutional providers for loans and you feel that there's one who can consolidate all your debts into one, and then increase your repayment period. So for example, you have a SACCO whose loan is maybe about coming to an end. Maybe you have a loan debt from the bank that looks one way or another. And you have all these other external ones that you want to finalize on and, delete those apps. You can easily walk to any of a financial services provider and ask them if they can consolidate. And if they were to consolidate, what would be the terms of your new loan? So you look at the terms of your new loan and you look at the terms of your older loans and find where it lies. If it lies among the high interest rates, then it's not for you. Okay? Because of course it has to make sense. The interest rate that you're paying back should not be so high. It should be just enough to cover your, what is required. So if someone is giving you a loan at 20% interest, that of course is a very expensive loan. That's not a loan that you would want.
Shouldn't be punitive. At the end of the day here, you are trying to
reduce
get
your
out
debts.
of debt.
Exactly. Right. So if you're in a space where you can find a consolidation partner, by all means, do the consolidation. Then from there, genuinely intend to not get into another loan until this one loan is over. Because then that means what you're doing, if you have consolidated through an institution that does a check-off for you, means you've already sorted that headache. Means you don't have to wait for your net income to then start wondering, how much further do I have to repay for a loan?
Get into this.
Exactly.
Mercy, do you know, I don't know if I've never heard of anyone looking at consolidating their loans and even renegotiating the terms of the loans. I think it's one thing that we as the consumers of these loans are not aware that we actually have this within us to look into it. And this as well also brings to mind, what are the other things that I'll say maybe in the developed economies are there? Things like your credit rating, your credit scoring and all that. I know we don't have that here. What's your take on that? Where do you think maybe the financial institutions should look into that? And how does this help when it comes to debt management?
So in Kenya, we have the listing.
Yes.
on the what are they called? The
CRBs.
Yes, you're listed on CRB. Credit reference bureaus, right? But it's used as a threat.
Yes.
It's never been used as look at it from the positive side of it. Something you should take advantage of. So you're being threatened by the mobile apps that if you do not pay, you'll be listed and the entire of your family is going to be listed, right? So it's been used as a threat. But when you look at developing countries, you realize that as soon as children get to like 16 years old, they are introduced to the element of a loan. What is debt? Because they need to build their credit score. Because their credit score helps them as they continue growing up in those economies. Because that allows them to have a score that provides them an opportunity with the lenders. A lender will be fighting to give you a loan because they look at your credit score and they believe that you will be able to pay because you want to maintain your score on a higher level, right? So if you were to introduce that into our country, I believe that would be a good thing. I believe that would also reduce the money supply issue, because you find that most of us would want to go to the bank for a loan, but the bank has the levels at which they give out the loans at, right? So they might have some leeway for negotiations, but maybe not for everybody because it's not been taken as such. But if we were to implement it in this economy, I believe there are people who would get some reprieve from their credit score, because there are people who pay off their debts very well. I would talk about maybe, especially teachers. If you go to schools or through TSC, you would know that teachers are very good at getting a debt and repaying it because it's being repaid through the payslip, yes. So you'd find that consistently there's a debt attached to that payslip, but that debt, if you find most teachers, when I look at my village and look at the teachers, they're the ones who build stone houses. They're the ones whose houses look very beautiful, And if I look at a person who has been in the corporate space, living the consumer life, the flashy life, and their outcome at the end, they are two different people. Again, the reason you take your loan and how you repay it, first of all, matches your credit score. And of course, it benefits you or it dampens you at the end of the time.
The other thing as well, it's also you can also use it to negotiate what rate
exactly
works for you. You can actually get a lower rate than what's actually prevailing in the market.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's actually a good thing. You'd said sometimes when we get into, say, the mobile loans and all that, we are very careful and we probably don't regard it as a loan per se because you didn't fill any form, you are not attached to it per se. Brings about, and I say this having worked in a microfinance institution where we used to see a lot of suicide cases because of debt situations, meaning there's a psychological effect on the debt burden to individuals. I don't know what you have to say on that, Mercy.
Money in itself, outside of debt, money in itself has a very huge psychological factor on every human being. You could be having as much money and as little debt, but if your money personality makes you feel like it is not enough, it still affects your mental health. Yeah, it still affects you psychologically. And there are those guys who their money personality is, as long as I have something to spend, I am okay. The time I don't have anything to spend, that's when the stress sets in, right? So now when you put it on the budget when you put it in terms of debt, it's to say that if I cannot pay my debt, I will definitely get stressed because what if they come and take whatever I used to guarantee? What if I used my home to guarantee this loan? What if they come for it, right? The mobile apps, we always say that I will delete my number and purchase another number, get a new SIM card, even just go off and get a Tululu, disappear from the face of the earth for a bit.
Yeah.
But even then, the process of preparing to disappear from the face of the earth in itself is psychological torture, right? So as long as we do not have a way of consistently paying off our debt, we will definitely find ourselves in a strained position, right? Remember the debt trap we were talking about. We get into it because we feel that there is no way out of it.
Yes.
If I don't get another loan, I will not survive tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I don't get another loan, maybe I was paying school fees. My children will all go to school. Yeah. If I don't get another loan, maybe electricity has disappeared. We will stay in the dark. Because, as you said, suddenly. But it's not suddenly. It's gradual.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know why it becomes gradual like that? Because on the converse, we don't budget. So, of course, when you don't budget, when you don't tell your money where to go, the money will find places to go. And as long as money finds places to go, it will trap you. So it's not just on debt. It's also on just money as a whole. Yeah.
I like this, you're saying that there's a way to get out of debt, meaning there's hope to it. You don't need to be discouraged about it. And as well, being that debt is very easy to come by, it's very easy for you to get debt. One should feel that they are not alone in this thing. One need not be discouraged about it. There are ways to get out of debt, as you've mentioned, the two different ways you've talked about it, also of consolidation. Then as well, what also is there, get to know who can actually consolidate this at much favorable terms than what you had. Then start small, just the starting small, keep at it as well.
Yeah.
Celebrate the small wins.
And
one thing you've brought that actually takes us to the next thing, budgeting. Great, Mercy. Thank you so much. Great insights there. Thank you so much for coming to this show.
Thank you for having me. I've had so much fun.